Good morning, Miss Ryan.
First I heard about it was yesterday. Where are you? I didn't know. No, seriously.
Okay, yeah, please be seated.
There's an invitation.
I can still take roll call.
Good morning. Good
Yeah.
morning.
I can still take roll call.
Good morning.
Audio going on.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock and I will call this meeting to order. And we do not have a
My
quorum
name's
yet.
to mute.
That's possibly me. I can fix this. Is that better? Is that better?
Yes, that's it. Yes,
Let me check one more thing.
that's better.
Okay,
Say 1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6.
There you go.
Yes, I am.
Inflation.
Well, who muted me? Thanks.
That's- Is it better is not a proper test.
We did not have a quorum yet, but I imagine Miss
Miss Allen's on her way.
Allen will be on her way. Mr. Tarver, oops, I lost my reading. Mr. Tarver has asked to attend remotely. And so has Mr. Young for purposes of work. So they will, do I have any objections to?
No.
No objections.
We'll still need a in-person quorum, but I think we can start the meeting while Ms. Allen is on the way. We do have a resolution to vote on and hopefully she will be here in time for our resolution. Okay,
Call the meeting to order.
so I am Mavis Bates. I'm still Mavis Bates. Today is May 16th, Friday, May 16th, 2025. And this is Kane County Energy and Environmental. Please call us to order. Are you logged in yet? Almost, we're having technical difficulties.
Point of order, I don't think we can do anything that you could call roll now, but we won't have a quorum. We can't do minutes or anything. So maybe just start with. Oh,
Okay.
excuse me, there's the state's
Uh-oh.
attorney right there.
Well, then we could do anything.
Never what you say.
Yeah,
With him
so
here, we could do anything.
With the state's attorney's advice and consent, we would then maybe just do the have the presentations if we have.
Okay,
presentations
all right.
Until we get a quorum.
Well, let's do one thing that is slightly out of order. We have a new intern, I believe. Would you like to come up and introduce yourself?
Oh.
John, you're an intern.
Huh.
Congratulations.
Got promoted from state's attorney.
Go ahead.
Oh,
State your name.
my name is John Jerkadis, and I am the new intern with the state's attorney's office, and my interest is in environmental law.
Oh,
So I already asked if I could adopt him. He could be the son I never had. Somebody said Mavis that's not, the state's attorney said Mavis that's not allowed. But okay, well, we're excited to have you as part of the state's attorney's team and welcome.
yeah,
So
well,
thank you.
So the other thing I can say too is we are going to provide pretty much a dedicated effort to have them working on a lot of the stuff related to E&E, specifically anything related to water resources, developmental stuff that comes before. We'll have them doing resolutions, contracts, stuff like that. So we're excited to bring him on. He's a full-on 7-Eleven, so we'll also be trying to get him into some litigation stuff so he can argue before the court, stuff like that. So we're excited to have him, and I think he sounds at least like he's excited to be with us. So
yeah,
Everybody's
so
excited.
far so
Great.
good. Does 7-Eleven mean he works at the 7-Eleven store or is that?
What does
something-
that mean?
Yeah.
So a 7-Eleven is a provision that kind of the lawyers that be with the state allow for third-year law students to basically operate like real attorneys in court as long as a licensed attorney is there with them. So we'll be bringing them to court, stuff like that.
He has to have you along with him.
No, I'll definitely not be no, I'm just kidding. But yes, me or any other licensed attorney.
Offer our apologies. for that.
I figured that's where you were going.
Okay, marvelous.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Okay, then I will go to any public comment. Can I do public comment now? What? Nope, not yet. How about environmental? Jody Wolnick. or Sarah or Austin? Who's presenting?
And Jody is
We're
not,
clear.
yeah.
Sorry.
Jody isn't here today. I don't believe she had any updates under this section. Did she?
No, not on her end.
Okay.
We did have a few presentations to run through, but that's the next section.
Well, here's the muffins. Miss
I guess
Allen
Miss
can't be
Allen-
far behind.
She's not here, but. the
Coming has
muffins
been
are.
foretold.
And, but we could have Roth step in.
Roth is here. You made our quorum, Mr. Roth.
I'm late. I had a physical.
Okay,
Time? No.
okay,
That's an early physical.
okay.
Oh, that's the best
Clerk,
way.
Please call us to order.
Okay.
You have to,
Okay, Allen,
No, earlier the better, right?
Caius,
Guy is present.
Genesis,
And this is here.
Strathman, Young,
Here, remote.
Carver. Oh, Bates,
Bates here.
And then you want to call me to
Roth,
Roth,
here.
so we have a
Okay.
quorum.
We have a quorum.
Now we can
Excellent.
start over.
Yes, we can, and I will. We did the roll call, remote attendance, we did already. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I would ask for unanimous consent for approval of the minutes from April 11th, 2025. This is Caius.
Mr. Prentice, would you like to second that?
Oh, I
If
didn't know
all
we
you
had
need is
to,
a.
But I will.
ask for
Absolutely.
objection. Is there any objection? It's
No
unanimous consent.
objections.
Oh, when will I get that right? Okay,
Yes, if nobody says nothing, you got it.
okay, we got it. Okay, we're done with the minutes. Environmental. Okay, so we're gonna move on to recycling.
Yes, so I don't have presentations today. I just have a couple of quick updates. So one is about the resolutions that we put through last cycle, so April, our meeting, and then they did just pass county board. But they were amended somewhat, and I just wanted to bring an update back to this committee about those. Which is that between introducing the resolutions and having them go through executive and county board, we realized we can't actually access the funds associated with the agreement in the federal award system. These were resolutions connected to a federal grant. These were the sub authorizing potential subawards. So under any kind of normal or previous circumstances I've worked under, once you receive your notice of award from a federal agency, you can start your projects. So that we received that notice of award in March, which is why I put the resolutions forward. But I can't remember the exact process, but either Paul in finance or I or both of us simultaneously realized that the award wasn't showing up in the award management system where you request your reimbursements and such and so forth. And there has been no proactive communication from USDA about this. We have contacted them numerous times to check down answers or to track down answers and what's going on. And all they've been able to tell us is that certain awards are on hold or frozen, whatever you want to call it, during the transition of government while they assess them against certain new priorities. And there's no timeline for resolving this. I guess since we have State's Attorney with us, I'd leave it to them to I guess assess this activity versus administrative law. I mean, to me, it's mind blowing, but it is what it is. So we do have the resolutions, which means that essentially if those funds become available to us, we will pursue the project. If they don't, we won't. And happier news, my only other update, excuse me, is that we're hosting an event, recycling event tomorrow, starting at 8 a.m. at the 540 South Randall Road, the circuit clerk's office. We're going to be shredding people's confidential documents, and then we have recycling or collection for reuse of clothing and textiles, decorative home goods, latex paint, and bicycles. So I'm looking forward to that. If you happen to drive by, you might see me on my rollerblades since they repaved the
serious?
parking lot. Yes, it's much easier to get my blades there than my bike. So
Ms. Ryan,
I'll wear a helmet.
Go ahead, Mr. Kais.
Do you have adequate volunteer staff to handle that?
Mike, please, Mr. Kais.
Do you have adequate volunteers to handle that?
Believe so. Yeah. It's it's a little bit on the low end, but I think we can make it work with what we've got.
Mr. Genesis.
Do you like more people?
I was just gonna say, is there a way for people, if you were looking for volunteers, where would they go to volunteer?
At this point, I'd probably want them to call me because it's tomorrow. So yeah,
I could be there. Does that count?
if you'd like to. Yeah.
What are they at, 8 a.m. to?
So I have my volunteers show up at 7:30. Yeah. Until noon, essentially. But we bring lunch in, so there's lunch at noon.
Pizza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Curious, what happens to the bicycles?
They are fixed up. So they're going now through Hesed House's bicycle ministry. So they fix them up and they give them away to people that come through Hesed House, essentially, to help them get basic transport to work and around town in their lives.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I have a comment. I want to thank you for all of your hard work on this compost project. You did magnificent work. You got the hospital, you got the Cougars, you got, I can never remember the
Food bank.
the Northern Illinois Food Bank, all to cooperate, all to agree, all to make their planning. You got, I can't think of a unswear word to finish the sentence, so I'll just say it's a darn shame that this happened. And thank you again you get all the kudos for making this happen. And I want to thank the members of the board for approving the resolution, even though it's in limbo, because when that money comes, we want to be ready to snatch it up. So thank you, Ms. Ryan, from the bottom of my heart. Yes.
I want to second that too. And it's not over yet, right? Because it was approved originally at the federal level, right?
Yeah, so the funding was appropriated by Congress years ago. And then, right, the signed agreement came through in March. So yeah, it may still happen. We're just going to be very
Our
delayed.
fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to thank the board members for voting on a what if resolution. Some people were not completely comfortable with that, but they understood the immediacy, the importance of being ready when if. Okay, all right. Then we'll move on to sustainability. Ms. Hinshaw, can you or Ms. Reardon?
Is Sarah online at all?
She was a second ago. I saw her. Sarah?
Yes, I'm right here. Sorry.
Okay, you
Yeah,
wanna
so
steer?
first we're gonna have Arnie. Arnie, are you there? We're gonna have him give a talk.
Okay,
for
Ms.
us.
Hinshaw?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Speak a lot slower.
Okay.
Thank you. Half speed. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Arnie Schrammel. I've been working with the county, our firm Progressive Energy Group, for the last 5 years. Thanks, Madam Chair and Board. I'm going to give the board a quick update on the electric spend estimates and the green attributes for the county's 2 megawatt solar field by the Judicial/Jail Center. As some of you guys know, I'm an accountant CPA by trade, so I have to put lots of numbers on a spreadsheet just to prove that to people that and complicate things. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is what we project the cost savings to be for your 2 megawatt solar field at the Judicial Jail Center with solar versus if the county never did anything. So right up on top is those 2 facilities use just under 9.5 million kilowatt hours a year. And we're projecting solar to produce just under 4 million for that site, and the rest of the power you'd be purchasing off the grid. That solar field is hooked into the judicial center and the 2 meters at the jail. It's not connected to the juvenile justice center or the multi-use facility. I'm not going to go through all the numbers in detail. I want to talk a little bit about transmission and capacity, because those are terms we use in the industry where there's big savings with solar. So most of us, when we look at our electric bill, all that stuff has collapsed into like electric service charge. But what transmission is, and transmission makes sense, that's the amount of money it takes to move the power from the power plants to the ComEd grid, to the local grid. And capacity are payments made to power plants to make sure there's enough power in the grid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And capacity prices have gone up by a factor of 9 starting June 1st this year. The simple thing is we used to have a lot of excess power because of the coal plants being shut down, taking longer for solar and wind resources to replace them. And the third factor is, and I'll get into this in a few minutes, for the first time in about 15, 20 years, we actually have fairly significant growth in electric demand, where electric demand has been flat for basically the 15, 20 years before that. But the good news for the county is when the county board approved that solar project, I think 3.5 years ago, we were projecting savings around $200,000 a year. The savings versus never doing solar will be over $300,000. And it's mostly because the price of electricity has gone up. The solar field is producing really as designed, as expected. And the prices that the county's paying, the 3.9 cents, that's really locked in for 25 years. So, to me, it's been a very successful project, and we'd like to work with the county to do more in the future. If we can go to the next slide, please. Then there's a whole bunch of environmental benefits attached to moving off the grid and onto a solar field. And that field is designed to last 25 years, and that's the equivalency of, some of the environmental benefits over 25 years. And go to the next slide. So this is kind of a graph of power prices since 2011. They were on a slow decline to about 2010, and then they went crazy for the first couple of years of the Ukraine war when there's big shortages, and the U.S. was shipping a lot of natural gas to Europe, which shot up the price of natural gas, which conversely shot up the price of electricity. And right now in the U.S., about 40% of the power produced in the U.S. is produced by natural gas. So natural gas is setting the price of electricity. When natural gas prices go up, price of electricity goes up. When natural gas prices go down, the price of electricity goes down. Some of you know this also, the U.S. is by far the largest producer of natural gas in the world, over twice, second place, Russia. And we're also the largest exporter of natural gas in the world. And way back in 2016, which isn't that long ago, it's 9 years ago, the U.S. exported 0 natural gas. Today, the U.S. is exporting 15 BCF a day, and they've got plants being built right now that'll push that up to 30 BCF a day here probably in 3 years. But the production of natural gas in the U.S. has also gone from about 70 BCF a day to 105 BCF a day. So there's, I keep hearing that Biden was anti-drilling and stuff, but through his administration, the production of natural gas and oil actually increased about 15%. If we go to the next slide. So one of the cost components that's buried inside everybody's utility bill is what we call in the industry capacity. And capacity, here's what it is. So, down in Aurora where I live, there's a peaker plant on the east side of Aurora, roughly 1,000 megawatts. That plant only runs 300-400 hours a year. It's a natural gas peaker plant. Just imagine a big jet turbine running on natural gas hooked up to a generator. They really only run on peak days, where last month Constellation had a couple of their nuclear facilities in Illinois being refilled, so they're offline, so they can run during the day on some of those days. But it's available to turn on basically with 20 minutes notice any time of the year. So if the grid ever loses a power plant, loses a major transmission line, that thing can be online with inside of 20 minutes, putting 1,000 megawatts of power into the ComEd grid. But you can imagine, you know, when Dynegy built that 15 years ago, it was $600 or $700 million to build it. If you can only run it $300-400 a year, you'd never make the payments. But today, you know, today in May, they're getting paid $28.92 a megawatt day. So 28.92 times 1,000, they're basically being paid $29,000 a day to be on the grid and be ready to produce power. Starting June 1st of this year, that $29,000 a day is going up to like $270,000 a day. So their income is going up by a factor of 9 for basically performing the same activity. And of course, you know, with that large of an increase, there's been a lot of political back and forth. The PJM grid, working with FERC, working with the governors of Illinois and Pennsylvania, for the year that starts June 1st of 26 to May 31st of 27, has put in this range of 175 to 325. So those prices are really high right now. Now, my expectation is 3-4 years down the road, as we get some of our large utility scale solar and some more of our wind built, that those prices will start creeping back down. In addition to that, under the current CEJA bill, a lot of the natural gas peaker plants are going to be forced to close down in 2030. I believe, and it's down in the state of Illinois now, I believe the state of Illinois is going to extend that out and leave those plants available to be online to 2034, 2035 to give more runway to help with the pricing. But again, like I tell people, it's not like those natural gas peaker plants are running 24/7, 365. They're running $300-400 a year. But the reason I believe they're going to pass that bill here in the next few weeks is those are turbines. So if you want to rebuild them, the investors who own them kind of want to know a year or two in advance if they should invest in those turbines and gen sets. Because like everything mechanical, they wear out and they're expensive to rebuild.
I have a question, or should I wait till after?
You can ask questions anytime.
Okay. Why did the price jump so high, and who is the one that's actually bidding during these
And
auctions?
who let them do it?
Well, it's a competitive auction, and personally, I have some issues with how the auction's set. So here's what happens is there's an organization called PJM, which ComEd's part of. It's called Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, that's in charge of making sure there's enough power in the grid 24/7, 365. So they anticipate that on a peak day in the ComEd zone, we're going to use 23,000 megawatt hours on the peak hour. And then they're trying to figure out where's all this power coming from. And when I moved to Illinois way back in 1990, ComEd had 10 coal plants. They had 6 nuclear power plants. All 10 of those coal plants are gone, way gone, tore down, gone. One of the 6 nuclear power plants is gone. So that site has gone down, rebuilt partially with wind and solar, but it's not equalized yet. So you get this mismatch. So the price is meant to send a signal to the market that we need more power. Now, what does that do? People who own solar, county owns solar. Very beneficial because your solar field is actually acting as a power plant on these peak days. And solar does a very good job of producing lots of power when the grid's at its peak, which makes common sense. but we just don't have nearly enough of it. The other thing that's been really new in just the last couple of years is the data centers. These data centers use incredible amounts of power. So, like I repeated, I almost have to tell a story with data centers because it's too hard for me to describe how much power these things use. So I live down in Aurora. Currently, Aurora has 2 data centers up and operating. They got another big one being built off the corner of I-88 and Neola Road. And they're supposed to start a 4th one here later this year. So if you added up, Aurora's, depending on what census you believe, between 200 and 220,000 people. If you added up every residential home, every townhouse, every apartment, and every small business in Aurora, Illinois, that group uses about 500 million kilowatt hours a year. Those 4 data centers in Aurora will use 1.2 billion kilowatt hours. Billion. They will use more than double. Every resident, every home, every apartment, townhouse, small business in Aurora. And Aurora's already got 2 of them up and operating. A 3rd one that'll be operating here by the end of the year, and a 4th one that's going to start construction at the end of the year. And that wasn't anticipated when CEJA was put into law. So, and it's not just Aurora, these data centers, Chicago's a hub for data centers. I got a slide later on, and it makes sense. Chicago, as I tell people, even though our power prices are going up in the Chicagoland area, we're still some of the lowest power prices in the whole country. And it doesn't feel that way sometimes, but if you go to Florida, you go to California, you go out to the East Coast, the power prices are not just 5% higher, they're generally 50, 60% higher than what we're paying here in Illinois.
Got another question, Arnie?
That because of our capacity being what it is compared to these other states?
That's part of it. Illinois is a net exporter of power. And especially the ComEd zone, which both have been a blessing and a curse for many years. Those 5 nuclear power plants that are still operating, which I tell people I think we paid for 2 or 3 times, which 20, 30 years ago, we had higher power prices, but now they're actually a net benefit. 2 is Illinois is like the 4th, we're in 4th place nationally as far as renewable energies, wind and solar. California is number 1, Texas is number 2, believe it or not, Florida is number 3, and Illinois is number 4.
Because of solar, yeah.
Yeah, Florida has tons of solar. And so the nice thing with solar is, out of the top 5 states, 3 of them are really red states, Ohio being number 5. So we're in Illinois, we benefit. We've got a nice nuclear base here. We've got quite a bit of wind and solar relative to other states. And the cheapest form of power once built is solar. Some of you guys have solar. Once solar is built, the net cost to produce power from solar is close to 0. It's just by far the cheapest source out there. If we go to the next slide.
Arnie, I have a
Yes.
question. Go back, please, on the slide. So this green 325 to 175, on my screen, I can't see the title of this slide. So what is the?
It's PJM, which means Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland capacity prices. ComEd is in that, what they call regional transmission operator.
And so that's your prediction?
Yeah, that's actually been approved all the way through FERC. So it's going to be in that range. So it's moved beyond prediction to it's going to be in that. Now, where in that range it ends up, we don't know.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Roth?
Part of that is to avoid brownouts, right? I mean, isn't California, because they don't have enough backup power, it's been having a lot of brownouts over the last few years.
Yeah, California and Texas, by far the 2 biggest states with renewables. And they're like at 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. California is being very regulated, Texas being the wide open West.
Right.
Those 2 states have both had rolling blackouts.
Right.
So it seems like neither extreme has worked well.
Right.
Illinois, we're more in the middle. We are deregulated as far as power prices go. We are deregulated as far as power plant building goes, but Illinois does have significant regulations and programs related to renewables. The nuclear power plants are now covered under CEJA. So Illinois kind of sits in the middle. I think Illinois is better than either the Texas model or the California model. But Winston Churchill, I like this quote from Winston Churchill. He said it back in World War II, his advisors would complain about the Americans. And Winston Churchill told his advisors, don't worry about the Americans. They always do the right thing after they try everything else first. And sometimes I feel in Illinois, we do the same thing. We always get to the right decision after we try a bunch of other things first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm curious about CEJA and its impact. Obviously, data centers are a big deal. They make a lot of tax money for the state, for the county. They employ people. And it seems to me like we're kind of backing ourselves into a corner, shutting down coal, shutting down nuclear, and then saying to these people, you know, the usage, you could cover the county of, you could cover Northern Illinois with solar panels and it wouldn't be enough to service those places. Is there any possibility that CEJA could be altered, or we could have incentive for other forms, like to build a new nuclear plant or do something that would give us consistent power?
Yeah, the couple things there. Some of this is my belief, but some of it's written. The current nuclear fleet is going to stick around for a while. Constellation, even some of their, I'll pick on Byron, which is, they lose their, I think it's NRC license in 5 years. Constellation's already said they're going to file the paperwork this year to extend that thing 20 more years. So our current nuclear fleet not only will most likely stay in Illinois, Constellation's also talking about upgrading several of those facilities. So today Byron's around 2,000 megawatts. They believe they have the capacity with the newer technologies, and if they invest not insignificant money, $1 billion into it, they can upgrade it to 2,300 megawatts. So I believe that's going to stick around. Illinois is also, they haven't passed the bill, but going to do a lot more with battery storage and continue pushing wind and solar. Again, Illinois is down to 3 coal plants. So the coal plants in Illinois are almost a rounding error. Now, in this area, Geneva, St. Charles, Batavia are all hooked into the largest coal plant, I think, in the United States. And that thing's scheduled to run to 2045. So that thing isn't going to be shut down anytime soon. Then there's 2 other smaller coal plants. I think the city of Springfield owns one that's really old. They haven't invested in. I don't think that thing is going to stick around, but that's not going to move the number anyway. The data centers, that is, it's new, and it's unknown how that's really going to impact us. It does, and I agree with your point. It does bring a ton of tax revenue in, not necessarily a ton of jobs after they're built, but the jobs there are well-paying jobs. The downside is their, electric capacity costs are socialized. So even if they're causing the increase, we all pay for it. Unless we somehow change how those costs get allocated going forward.
Okay, I want to say something about the new bill, because it's called SERGA, which you can Clean Resilient Grid Affordability Act. And I'm going to Springfield on next Thursday for lobby day. And Arnie has already told you much of what's in the bill without saying it's in the bill, but more clean energy, which CEJA has set goals for renewable energy, 100% by 2050, 50% by 2030. Is that sound about right? And we're
That's,
only,
yeah. No, we're probably not going to make that by 2030. But we are,
we're at
we're mo- we're
13.5%
we're moving that
of
way.
that about now. What's one of the main clauses in Surja is called Beyonce, BYONCE, bring your own new clean energy. And this would require the data centers to build their own clean energy fields instead of being subsidized, socialized by everybody having to pay these big power bills for the data centers. So you can expect, if this bill should pass, every big new data center will be surrounded by, I don't know, 100 acres of solar, something like that, or out in, out where there's more ag, there'd be agricultural land available, there'd be wind and solar. Is that about right, Arnie?
Yeah, but it's thousands of acres of solar.
Yeah,
not
okay.
hundreds.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Roth?
And that's already happening. Microsoft is reopening the 3 Mile Isle plant that was closed down 40 years ago to build a data center there. And Amazon is looking to build a nuclear
So they're
power.
not reopening the
They're going to refurbish that 3
nuclear
Mile
power
Island.
plant?
Yeah,
Yeah, just to clarify, 3 Mile Island had 2 nuclear reactors.
right. One was shut down.
One that went critical is shut down.
Mhm.
The other one they shut down 2 years ago. Constellation owns it.
Is that the one they're going to reopen?
Yeah, it was shut down 2 years ago, and they're going to spend, if the numbers I read, $1.5 billion and try to get a 20 to 30-year license from the NRC.
Right.
But right now, what I read is Microsoft's going to take 100% of the power off that power plant.
Right. They're building their own. And then Amazon's looking at doing the same thing out in Arizona, build a nuclear plant.
Mhm.
And then you mentioned, relicensing the nuclear plant. That's going to be their second relicensing because they were originally licensed for 25 years. And then they relicensed when that expired and now they're going to relicense again. So they're
So-
living 3 times longer than what was originally forecast.
But a lot of environmentalists are very concerned about bringing nuclear back online.
Right.
And
And we're moving
if there's
in
a
that
nu-
direction.
excuse me,
Yeah.
if there's a nuclear catastrophe, it's a big deal. So they're still avoiding that. And before you say something about small modular nuclear reactors, they're still 10 or 15 years away from
Right, right.
becoming economically.
Yeah. And people keep talking fusion. That's probably 20 to 30 years away.
It's always 20 or 30
I
years.
know. Well, no, they are making some progress.
What?
They are making some progress. And this whole demand increase is caused by the data centers, which they didn't forecast until 5 years ago. They didn't have it. And what's
Mhm.
driving that, of course, is AI. And I had heard a forecast of 30% increase in electrical demand because of data centers.
Yeah, if we go to the next slide. This kind of shows the history of electric demand growth. Now I'm older than most people in this room, but I remember the late 60s, 70s, 80s. I remember when my parents got AC, but there was significant, and these are annual growth rates. So, if you're growing at 5% a year over I think 9 years, you'd almost double the load. But starting in the late 90s, early 2000s, the growth went close to zero. And that's not growth per home. That's like entire US growth in electricity. So even though we were adding homes, adding factories, there was so much conservation with the new HVAC systems being significantly more energy efficient, lighting being significantly more energy efficient. The growth rates were under 1%. And again, this is nationally. But just with these data centers, now we got growth rates, thinking above 3% a year, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when we are taking away power sources and adding demand, it's created a mismatch. And in Illinois, I'm looking for the data in Illinois. I think the growth rate in Illinois is even much higher than 3% because Illinois is right now anyway, a data center hub or becoming that.
Arnie, are they doing anything to make these data centers require less water, less? We haven't talked about water, but water and electricity.
Yeah. So currently I'll pick on again the Aurora, the two existing data centers are using literally millions of gallons of water a month to cool them down. The newer data centers are almost, they still use water, but they recycle the water on plant and are air cooled, but it really doesn't save on energy. So these data centers use a lot of power to run the servers, but they also use a lot of power to cool these things down. Water is cheaper than air, but just in the short run, potentially, maybe not in the long run.
Is that water recycled?
Yes. Yeah, most of the water in the modern data centers, yeah. And the new data center that's on the drawing boards in Aurora will use very little water. They would be recycling the water on site and much more air-cooled systems rather than liquid-cooled systems.
But the power is still incredible.
But it's incredible amounts of power and, even some of the data centers have been around for 6-7 years. When those data centers get updated with the new chips, those new GPU chips use like 8 times more power than the existing chips.
Guys are hogs.
Yeah, they like power. There's no doubt that the new chips, they're way, and I'm not an IT guy, you have to ask, but they're supposedly way more efficient and.
They don't sound
Not
more
efficient in using energy, obviously.
Right, not more efficient using energy, but whatever, can produce
Miss
way
Allen,
more
please.
stuff.
Go ahead, Miss Allen.
Just as a
Microphone, my dear.
sure, just as a bow to the world they live in, is there any chance the new centers being built in Aurora are putting solar on their roof?
No, because they got so much cooling equipment on their roofs. They got no room for solar. But most of the large data center people are very concerned, at least with having green energy. So Amazon, Microsoft, CyrusOne, they're all in Aurora. They have big commitments to have green power, but it's not necessarily in Illinois. So Microsoft is putting some big data centers here in Illinois. They're basically, got a big nuclear power plant now that they're technically it's owned by Constellation, but Microsoft's putting all the money to rehab it. But they also got huge solar fields and wind farms they're building in Texas. But that, in the US, that kind of levels things out, but locally, it really doesn't help us. The Texas grid is isolated. Texas is not sending any power to Illinois. We're not sending any power to
But we
Texas.
buy from Iowa, don't we? And
We do buy some from Iowa. Again, Illinois is a net exporter of power right now. So we're actually sending power out more than we're receiving power. The other thing I tell people, the power grid is not that robust. If the power plants here in Illinois do not run, we cannot possibly import enough power from Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana to operate what we need here. The grid just isn't built out that way. It's like running a 120 cycle into somebody's home and thinking that's going to power the whole home. Are there those interconnections? Yes, but they're not these big 340 kV lines that can move lots of power. Now, some of those are on the drawing board. In our company, we do a lot of solar. In solar, I tell people there's nothing quick about it. It takes 2 to 4 years generally to get these things built. Trying to get a transmission line built is like a 10 to 15 year project. I mean, it is incredibly time consuming. And they're rare to get built. There's a lot of opposition, and I get it. My parents' farm in Minnesota had a transmission line run through their property. They fought it like crazy, them and their neighbors. And I get it because nobody wants a big transmission line sitting 300 feet off their house, which is exactly what my parents have now. They're ugly. They make bad sounds. There's nothing nice about them.
That,
Yeah, so the power grid and the capacity that we have in Illinois is why the data centers are coming here, right? And
Yes.
if we do this legislation that's proposed, it has to be,
They'll go elsewhere.
we'll have more data centers. Is that your
yeah.
point? Well,
Yeah, and it's not easy getting these big solar fields built. We're working with the one on Plano, which is about 700 acres of solar north of Plano, and it's got a ton of opposition in that area. And they've been trying to get that approved for a couple of years. I don't know if it'll ever get approved.
Bill?
Yes. I had heard an analogy that our power grid is still running almost 1960, 1970 technology. And, it was built originally to give power, not to accept, which makes it harder to, as you build these solars. And that's why they need to build all these transmission lines.
Now that the power, it was for a centralized,
Yeah.
Well, and only giving, not
then-
accepting.
right, because now that it's distributive.
Right.
Okay.
No, you're-
okay,
you're-
Arnie,
you're
we'll let
exactly
you
right.
Talk.
The grid was built, pick on the ComEd grid. That grid was built to take power from 17 power plants and push it to 3 million customers.
Mhm.
ComEd, a lot of people complain about ComEd and, they deserve some criticism, but compared to most of the other utilities around the country that we work with, ComEd is way in front of them, way in front of them.
Good.
ComEd has 5% of its residential base now with solar on their roof. That's actually one of the highest in the whole country. And it's been a combination of the old Future Energy's job or Future FEJA, CEJA,
Future Energy Jobs Act and Clean and Equitable Jobs Act.
right, CEJA, and all those things work together. But ComEd has not been resistant at all, or
Well, they
it's
don't,
had less
they don't produce
resist-
it. ComEd
don't
is not a
produce.
producer of energy, so if we're producing our own energy on our rooftops, well, I guess they lose some transmission fees, but
They do lose some money because like your solar at your house,
Mhm.
Chairman, your ComEd bill has gone way down.
Mhm.
Not just because of energy, but ComEd makes their money delivering electricity
yeah,
from the transmission station to your house. The next slide, some opportunities. Generally, right now with the current incentive plans, residential, I tell people, I get this question a lot on residential, should I put solar on my roof? And I said, yeah, the payback is generally 7 years, but you really need a roof that's good for 20 years. If you don't have a roof that's good for 20 years, there's a lot of incentive money to put solar on your roof. There's no money to take the solar system off your roof, repair, replace your roof, or put it back on. Some people live in pretty densely shaded, large trees. If you got a lot of shading, the economics don't work either. But if you have those things, the payback is almost always less than 7 years. For business, government, nonprofits, the payback's actually even quicker. There's actually better incentives right now for commercial government than there are for residential and the way the rates are set. In addition, businesses generally can depreciate the systems where residential people can't. And then the one nice thing that I like what Illinois did, and they followed the model kind of off Massachusetts and Minnesota, is Illinois is big into what we call community solar. These are generally 5 megawatt fields. Sometimes they're co-located, so they can be up to 10 megawatts, but it's meant to be for residents and businesses that can't put solar on their property. They can subscribe to these fields. And we're working with the county right now to put in all the ComEd accounts into a bid package for community solar subscriptions for the county. Those savings are guaranteed to be 10 to 15% less than the ComEd energy supply rate. To me, it's the greatest deal in the world. If you give them $90, they're going to put $100 of energy credit on your utility bill. And you don't have to spend any capital money. It's like, to me, it's the best deal in the world. And we all support those. The reason they can do that is because there's 30% federal tax credit. And through the CEJA bill, they get about another 35% of the bill paid for by selling the environmental credits to the state of Illinois, which we're all funded. But we're all paying into these funds. Everybody who pays a ComEd bill is paying into these funds. So you might as well try getting the benefit as much as you can on the flip side around. Now, the one thing I didn't have a slide here, but I've been working with your staff is, some other potential things the county could consider. We already talked about the community solar subscriptions. We think the county can save about $100,000 a year if we can get the current county ComEd accounts hooked into community solar subscriptions. And we're going to be working with your Jody's group and your procurement group to move that forward.
Which one was that, Arnie? What was the 100,000?
That's for community solar subscriptions. And again, what's nice about that, it requires no capital investment.
You don't even have to own a roof.
No,
This is for renters. This is for people with shady roofs. This is-
anybody who has a ComEd bill,
Yep. Including
anybody in
King
every
County, right?
right. And if you have solar, like I have solar on my roof, I'm signed personally in my house and our business, we're also signed up for community solar. So it's not exclusive. If you have solar, you can also sign up for community solar.
Yeah, Mr. Grice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Arnie, I mean, this community solar for the county sounds like an amazing deal, and we're staring at a very large deficit. Why haven't we done this already? I mean, is somebody saying no or slowing things down or?
Well, there's two reasons. First of all, there isn't any available subscriptions right now. So we anticipate more subscriptions coming available later this year. So here's the game that's going on. So the community solar fields off CEJA, there was like a 1.5, 2-year gap between FEJA and CEJA.
Couple years, yeah.
And then everything stopped. And now everything's back being built.
Because the money ran out.
Yeah, the incentives ran out. And then even once you decide, if you decided you wanted to build a community solar field today, it would take you about 2 years to come online. And that's if things went well. So these things don't pop up in 3 months. So what we'd like to do is get the county, and the county's receptive to this, is to have the county issue an RFP based on when these fields are going to be built. And then when they come online, you're subscribed. So they like counties because the counties are going to be around for 15 to 20 years. At least I think the county's going to be around for 15.
We'll
That's the
see.
plan.
We'll let you know.
Don't care.
Right now.
The other thing in Illinois, when you build a community solar field, if you're a developer, half your load has to go to small customers, residential and small business. The other half can go to large. And Illinois adopted that because in Minnesota, when they built these community solar fields, the large universities, government, businesses subscribe the whole field. And if you're a community solar developer, I'd rather sign up the University of Minnesota, 3M, and Best Buy, and I got 3 customers that I'm pretty sure are going to be around. It's a lot harder to sign up 1,000 residential customers and then the University of Minnesota and somebody else. But Illinois, to safeguard that from not happening, make sure everybody benefits, Illinois forces if you want to take the incentives, which everybody does, half the subscriptions have to be with small customers, really residential and small commercial. The other half can be large. So, let's go back to King County here. 75% of your power that you get from ComEd is your government center. The juvenile justice center, the multi-use facility, the jails, and the judicial center. So it's harder to get that thing in because it's large. And as a residential, if you sign up, you know, if you look around, you can get a 15% reduction for a residential customer for community solar. If you're a large customer, it's generally 10%. So it's, you always think, okay, we use more, we should get a higher percentage. But in this market, it works actually just the opposite, because they have to sign up a lot of small customers, and it takes a lot more work to sign up 1,000 residential customers than to sign up one Kane County. If that makes sense, or anybody's got questions, I do a lot of this stuff. I can get more detail. But even if the county gets a 10% reduction and you as a resident can get 15%, it's the easiest way to make money in the world. You give them $90, they put $100 on your bill. You make $10 every time. If I could sign up for 1 million kilowatt hours at my home, I'd sign up, but they only allow you to sign up for what you actually use.
Okay, Mr. Genesis.
Yeah, so, the solar farm is connected to the ComEd
Grid.
right? So it doesn't necessarily matter where we sign up people for this community solar program, right? They could be
Right.
anywhere in the county.
Anywhere in the county.
North of 80,
What's that?
north of I-80.
North of I-80.
north
Well,
of-
anywhere in the ComEd service territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of ComEd's territory goes south by 80.
Oh. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're all the way down to almost Bloomington and parts of their stuff. But it can be anywhere in the ComEd grid. Yeah, I get the question. They like to get these community solar fields hooked to where their power is. That's one of the reasons they
Right.
like to put them in Kane County, Will County, Kendall County, because there's actually quite a bit of power coming in. It's got two things. Those counties all have farmland because they generally need about 20, 25 acres. You know, you're not going to find that in Cook County or DuPage County in too many places, Lake County, but Kane County, Will County, Kendall County has still quite a bit of farmland. Now you get west or south of those counties, there's very little ComEd infrastructure. There are some lines running through, but you can imagine a 5 megawatt field, you need more than a residential line coming through. You need some substantial power. And I know the county board, I think you guys have had, what, dozen different community solar fields come through the county board in the last 4 years. And I'd expect probably another dozen in the
We
next.
just passed two last week.
Yeah, and I would expect the county to see another dozen of those in the next 2 to 3 years come up for proposal. Because Kane County.
Those are not real big though, right? They're all in the 20 acre.
Yeah, the state of Illinois community solar is maxed out at 5 megawatts, which is about 25 acres. That's the largest you can build them. Now, the state of Illinois also lets you co-locate them now under CEJA. So essentially, you could have 2 5 megawatt fields right next to each other. So the city of Aurora at their airport, they're co-locating 2 5 megawatt fields next to each other. And hopefully that construction starts later on this year.
Is that the airport one?
Yeah.
Mr. Genesis is.
Yeah, have we, since I'm new here, have we presented this to the ag committee so that we could get our farmers on board if they have some land, you know, that they're not interested in farming? This could be an opportunity for them.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, maybe we should.
I do have farmers come to me and usually the interconnect is the big problem. There has to be a substation within a half a mile or so to make it economically feasible because it's like very expensive. Mr. Roth.
I think a better suggestion is we have a lot of strip pines. And those already have the buffers so you don't see them and they're isolated. And the soil's already ruined after they're done. So instead of trying to reconstruct the soil, let's build the solar. They're out of sight. So you're not going to get people saying, oh, I don't want to see it.
I think they're already looking at that, but
But that's, I think something the
Yeah.
county should lead that charge on. You know,
we
through
in
so
our
many,
county.
what?
We don't.
Yeah,
any
we have a
difference.
huge one in South Elgin.
Hmm.
And there's some big ones across the county.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very active.
Yeah.
I didn't know
But
that.
you get, there again, you gotta get the numbers and see. You know, I'm not a strip mine expert, so I'm not gonna claim.
It's monstrous.
Miss Hinshaw, did you want to say something? Okay, all right.
And then just a couple other quick things. We're looking at doing rooftop solar at the county's new Elgin Health Facility. They got a new roof going on there sometime in the next 3 to 6 months, and then we're gonna look at putting solar on that. We're hoping that'll save the county about $20,000 annually. We're gonna take a high level look at putting more solar out at your judicial, jail, multi-use facility. When that 2 megawatt field was built, that was the maximum size allowed under the old Future Energy's Job Act. But you could upsize that from a 2 megawatt field to a 5 megawatt field. There would require, another 10 to 12 acres. Initially, we're thinking on the far east side of that property. So we're going to look at that. We think that could save the county easily another $300,000 a year. As some of my farm friends go, I go, well, that's, about $30,000 an acre. If you can convert it to farm rent, and generally in Kane County, farm rent is right around $400 an acre right now. And does it tie up the property for 25 years? Absolutely. But it doesn't tie it up for the next 150 years. So, if we'll probably bring that to the county later on, or this committee later on.
Pardon me?
Proposal. We'll probably bring some sort of proposal back to this committee in the next couple months, at least let this committee look at it and see if they want to move it forward.
Mr. Roth.
Regarding our solar out of judicial, there was an issue last summer that some of the voters complained. The weeds were like getting 10 feet tall. So they chopped them down, and then the agreement was originally they would plant native plants and stuff like that. And they hadn't planted them as of last year. Were they going to do it this spring? I know you can't answer that, but
Well, actually, I can't. They
Okay.
did plant
A native seed blend.
a native seed mix, and it didn't take. So they're trying to figure out what to do next.
Okay.
It got dry out there, died out. And I'm not an expert on this, but somebody in here might be, Mavis you might be an expert.
I am.
If you really want to get that stuff going, I've been told you really need to burn it down every couple of years, which is
Yeah.
going to be impossible to do with a
With
solar field.
right?
So there's people trying to figure out how to do that, but I do know it's not easy to get the native flowers and grasses growing in these large scale solar fields right now. Somebody will figure that out.
Okay.
It's still very rocky, isn't it? It's
Yes.
like a gravel pit.
Yes, it is. It is all gravel.
Mhm.
There's another complication too.
Mr. Gripe,
No, go ahead.
There's another complication too. The solar is only responsible for the property behind the field. There's a lot of property outside of the fence. There's a lot that the county is responsible for outside the fence.
what are you talking about?
Well, when you drive by the solar, you see the fence protecting the solar.
Yeah,
There's, I don't know how many acreage that the county is responsible for maintaining, which is building facilities. And we had the same issue, the
are you talking
weeds,
about the weeds again?
the
Are you
weeds.
still talking about?
Well, but
weeds?
also that we need to plant something there to keep the weeds from coming back there too. It's two different organizations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the counties always had problems with that site in weeds. But I also know people they're not ignoring it. Have they cracked the code on how to fix it? No, and
Yeah.
your solar field was basically sold from one entity to another, and they dropped the ball on mowing the vegetation inside the fence. But we're hoping now that the new organization, Nelnet, has it, that'll be done at a better rate going forward. But as far as getting into native grasses and pollinators, everybody wants to do that because that would actually save them money in the long run.
Right.
But you got to figure out how to get it to take.
Right.
And live.
And stay alive.
Yeah.
Mr. Gripe is the expert. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, my wife does this for a living and she and I went out there and looked at it. And I was gonna spearhead the charge to do this. Came to the conclusion with her input and some other experts that we took out there, give up. It won't work. I mean, if you were gonna build a garden, would you put a roof over it? You know, that's effectively what it is. So its purpose is to generate electricity. It does that. I don't think we should waste any time or money trying to plant stuff because A, like you said, needs to be burned out every couple of years like we do in our forest preserves. Number two, it doesn't get a good supply of rain because it's shielded from it. Number three, it doesn't get a good supply of sun because it's shielded from it. So you can't expect plants to grow in that kind of environment. So it's got a good purpose. It does its thing. Just let it grow.
We could always bring in goats.
There you go. Yeah. good
That's, except they eat the wires, so you really have to bring in sheep.
So then you
but
have to bring in
Goats
sheep.
are funnier.
Yeah, you got to bring in the sheep.
Intended consequences, always.
They could
unintended.
be like a wandering group, you know, they could go to each solar farm. We could have them set up in each solar
We
farm
could,
for
we
like a
could
month.
buy goats and rent them to other solar.
I'll leave the charge.
I like the sheep idea better than goats. I
Yeah,
gotta,
either one is fine.
Better because the
the
goats
goats-
eat the wires.
the goats eat everything. They'll eat the solar panels, I
They
think.
love
Oh, well, like
silicon.
that.
Yeah.
Point of order, can we bring this thing under
Yes.
control?
Oh, come on, Chris. You.
Get the goats, I'm sorry.
Debbie Downer. Okay, continue, please. Oh, I want to bring us back to the RFP for the community solar.
Yes.
So can you explain? I think this is one of the very most important things I want to come out of this meeting is the need to do this RFP somewhat ahead of time, correct? Because otherwise, if we wait until a solar farm gets built and they're auctioning off, I guess it's an auction, I don't know, but they're selling subscriptions, it will be too late. Unless we can go straight to purchase or unless if we have the RFPs ready ahead of time. So that's part of your plan, Arnie, is to do the RFPs ahead of time?
Yes, it's work with your procurement department and your energy environmental department. Hopefully get it issued in a couple weeks, get responses back inside of 5-6 weeks. And then you'll be in a queue with somebody. Now, again, that doesn't mean you'll be getting community solar here in 25, but as these fields get built in 25 and then 26, and they come online middle of next year, you're ready, because you want to be in line. Because what happens when they finally get approval to build these things, they usually sell them out before they're even built, because then they can go to the financiers and say, hey, King County is going to be a major subscriber to this field. And King County is, you know, most of the people who finance this stuff would love to finance stuff if they knew King County was a major off taker.
Are we also concerned that we might not get a response to an RFP? And that maybe we don't need to, I know this is going back to Mr. Frank, but could we do this possibly without an RFP? The community solar doesn't require an RFP, right?
It does not.
Would have with the
I would like to try the RFP. If we don't get a result, then we'll have to come back here and figure out Plan B. We have
Because-
talked to some of the community solar developers and, you know, upfront and said, hey, and we work with Kendall County. We also work with DuPage County. They got the same issues. You know, you guys have pretty stringent procurement policies. Not just King County, but most government. So we want to see if we can make that work inside your current rules and regulations before we want to get an exemption. And if we need an exemption, we'll come back to the county board and ask for an exemption.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Frank?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, can we ask you a question, John? Sure, come on up. Would this go to finance then? Could we just have them develop an RFP?
So what specifically are you looking to do? Like, I understand that we're talking about an RFP, but what exactly are we looking to put out under an RFP?
a request for community solar to apply to Kane County for us to be able to get in on the next batch of community solar credits. Arnie, is that right?
Yes.
Are we purchasing anything?
You're not purchasing anything, but you are.
Arnie, come up to the mic, please. You can share.
The county would not be purchasing anything, you're not purchasing a laser pointer, but you are signing up for a 15-year subscription.
Which has no cost.
Which will guarantee you to save you money. So again, like I use the analogy, if you get a 10%, if you give them $90, they're going to give you $100 of credit on your utility bill.
You're getting basically a different vendor on your electric that you save money.
How do we do that, John?
Yeah, and this is all run through the Illinois Power Authority. So this is not Progressive Energy Group doing this. This is not ABC Solar Company doing this. I mean, ABC Solar Company might be the solar developer, but it's all regulated and run through the Illinois Power Authority. And even if you enter an agreement with ABC Power Company, the Illinois Power Authority will also send you another agreement that says this is exactly the terms and conditions. And you have to agree to that and sign off on the Illinois Power Authority's contract. And then the Illinois Power Authority will say, okay, Kane County subscribing to ABC Solar Field. And ABC Solar Field, and then behind the scenes is entitled to some of this, what we call SREC money, Solar Renewable Energy Credit money from the Illinois Power Authority. I'm probably getting a little too much in the weeds here.
Mr. Frank has a mic.
Yeah, so I'll kind of repeat my question a little bit differently. Are we purchasing anything from them? Or is it simply joining onto their program, and whenever we pay them a certain amount of money, then they forward that plus whatever the margin is over the top?
I'm not trying to beat around the bush. It's a subscription.
Sure. So the reason I ask is purchasing is strictly kind of related to the idea of you're purchasing something. That doesn't mean we can't buy stuff without, you don't always have to go through purchasing, but when you're buying like commodities or things that can be given to you by multiple different places that are all the same, you have to go through purchasing. That's why I'm trying to understand what exactly it is that we would be buying. It sounds like it's a subscription.
You're buying the rights to solar energy produced at a community solar field. But
okay,
it's here's what's complicated. You're really never taking ownership of the electrons. You're just getting the financial benefit of it. So it's almost like a financial instrument.
Would it be
mirrors a physical commodity?
Would it be any kind of an ownership interest? Okay,
No,
so it's simply a
specifically,
subscription.
yeah, you haven't seen the contract, but if you see the contracts, it specifically says you have no ownership rights.
I figured, but what I'm trying to get at is, are we actually buying them even though we're not taking physical possession of them?
You physically don't own anything except you have a right to the financial benefits of solar.
Okay. To be honest with you, I'm going to need to see the contract.
Right.
Yes.
I
Why don't we take this offline?
Yeah.
I 100% agree, because this is one of those things I really think two different reasonable attorneys can come to two different opinions.
That can be true. of a
Right.
lot. So I'm with you.
I am very glad that we got to introduce this today, and it's a future conversation, but I believe what will happen is that Mr. Powell and Ms. Hinshaw, our sustainability coordinators and managers, will be working with Arnie and the state's attorney to try to make this happen. So
And the counties.
from our sustainability department will come these hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings.
So the only thing I'd ask is, before you go to RFP and spend all that time, send us a template contract so we can actually see what possibly is being purchased. Because if it's not something that we're actually purchasing, it might not necessarily need to go to RFP. But I can't know that until I know what
So
specifically we're talking about.
resistance is futile. You will be included, Mr. Frank.
That's a good idea. And these contracts, it almost doesn't matter because they're all really an Illinois Power Authority.
Okay, we need
contracts.
to move along.
And they
I
won't
think.
move.
Let's move on, Arnie. This is a good conversation.
Okay, and then the two other things we want to look at down the road is one, potentially putting a 1 to 2 megawatt battery at your judicial center. Batteries in Illinois have lots of incentives right now. They have better paybacks than solar. And two, and the last thing is potentially look at the former sheriff's site, not the old, but like the 25 acres on the
Fabian.
back site,
Fabian.
off Fabian. I think the total site's like 35 acres, but keep the 10 acres on the Fabian Road left for future sale or development. To take the back 25 acres and look if we can, the county can put a community solar field on that vacant land. And that would be solar that, they'd build a 4 to 5 megawatt field there. The roughly rent payments are $3,000 to $4,000 a year to the county. And kind of take a property that isn't being used for much today. So the county could earn, $80,000 to $100,000 in annual rent payments on property that's not being used today.
And even though the contract says 25 years on it, if we are really nervous about tying up the land for 25 years, after 15 years, the SRECs have been paid back. Solar renewable energy credits have been paid back. So there could be a consideration after 15 years of tearing down the panels. But I don't see us building a new county center, county government center for 15 years, 25 years.
Right.
Way past,
The other advantage of that site is we already have infrastructure there, like the electrical lines
okay. Yeah.
underground, I believe.
Okay, so thank you, Arnie. Are you done?
Yes, I am.
We've tortured you for quite a while.
No,
But thank you so much, Arnie. So one of the takeaways, the big takeaways from this, from Arnie's talk is there is, we didn't add up all the possible savings, but clearly there's possibly millions of dollars of savings here. And Austin and Sarah, Mr. Powell and Ms. Hinshaw would be the ones to make this happen. So, okay. Thank you, Arnie. Next on the agenda is Ms. Hinshaw?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Arnie. I really appreciate the talk today.
Go ahead.
Yep. You want to go to the next slide of the presentation? There we go. Excellent. All right. So today I'm going to present the savings for the lights in the parking lots, some new HVAC systems, and an update on the electrical vehicle and charging infrastructure rebates that we received. So this is the, excuse me, this is the electrical cost and the kilowatts at the Judicial Center since May 2023. Overall, there's kind of a downward trend that you can see, especially with the kilowatt hours. The difference between the last few months, between this year and last year, it was average about $8,000 difference per month. Now, I can't say though if that's due to the solar panels or the lights. I need some more data, throughout the year, and then I can give an update of, the true cost of the savings in terms of, between the solar panel and the lights. I can go to the next slide. Thank you. So here we have the lights for the parking lot. The total cost of that project was a little over $2 million. This includes both the indoor and outdoor lights. The cost of just the parking lots lights was about $233,000. Overall, there was a replacement of 275 lights for the parking lot. And here's the list of all the different lights that were replaced. The major ones, of course, were the ones on the poles, 52 of those. And then there was other ones like floodlights and small lights like on the buildings. Now I've received updated information since this chart from the contractor. So these numbers are a little bit off, but they're better. So that's great. The kilowatts removed was actually 182,000. And then the total savings per year will be about $21,000, which is pretty excellent. This is estimated at a cost of the lights being dimmed. So the lights dim to 50% if there's no action. And so especially at night, they will only come on, they only go to 100% if there's movement. And so being at night at the Judicial Center, they'll be minimal. So this is a pretty good estimate on this. Of course, once we have, again, a year worth of data and give you the true fact numbers, but this is a pretty accurate number. Overall, this saves about 72 metric tons of greenhouse gases per year, which I found out was equivalent to 183,000 miles driven per year. So you can go to the next slide. So this one is, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention on the previous slide. Can you go back one moment, please? Thank you. So just to go back to this one, forgot to mention that these will kind of pay for themselves in about 11 years. So, however, this doesn't include our block grant that we got. Right now, it's still frozen. Our block grant was $50,000. And so hopefully that will be unfrozen. We don't know at this moment, but if that does happen, then the lights will pay for themselves in about 9 years. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So they've also replaced 7 HVAC systems on the county court and the jail. And it's a major project. It was about $1 million, a little over $1 million. And just as an estimate for the new HVAC systems, so they have a rating, a SEER rating of 10 originally, and the new rating is 16. So this is the total heat removed divided by the electric energy used, and how that's calculated for the SEER rating. So again, they increased from about 10 to 16. And overall, it is estimated that the savings will be $33,000 over a 15-year period. And of course, again, same with this one. As soon as I have actual numbers and everything's installed, I can compare the 2 different years and rates between the 2 of them. In addition to this, we also had a small rebate from NICOR, about $3,000, just simply for updating our systems. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. And lastly, I have an update on the savings for the EV rebates. I presented on this last year, and these are the real numbers for everything. Last year was estimates. So we had put in tax credits for the clean energy tax credits for the 2 fully electric cargo vans and the 2 hybrids, as well as our new charger and the infrastructure. So as mentioned last year, our charger cost about a little over $14,000, and we pretty much received that total amount back. The common rebates are all been distributed. The tax credits have just been sent in now and been accepted by IRS, so that's excellent. So hopefully that will be, a short turnaround sometime soon. So overall, the total cost savings from all of this was $59,000, which resulted in about 26% return from these vehicles and charger systems, which is a pretty great amount. So just kind of wrapping that together just for this year, overall, my estimate was that this saved $83,000 for this year between these different rebates and electrical savings. Yeah. And I think that is it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a resolution on the agenda.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Sarah?
We have
Thank
a
you.
question for you.
Thank you, Sarah. Could you go back to page 15 for a second? Yep, there we go. So I think I heard you say their annual savings were 21,000
Yes.
and I see 17,000. What's the difference?
The difference is so I sent out information to the contractor asking for the kilowatts that were used from the previous lights and then the ones for the new lights. And he gave me an estimate, and then I submitted this to Courtney, and then about 3 hours later, he gave me an updated estimate. with the actual numbers. And so that's just the difference. So the numbers here, the kilowatts after has a little bit more savings than what you see here.
Okay, and then secondly, you mentioned that there's greenhouse gas savings with the new lights. That would imply, I guess, that the old lights emitted greenhouse gases, which
Just in
I
terms
didn't-
of well, yes, in terms of electricity itself, the electricity saved and the kilowatt hours that are used, it has been reduced quite a bit. And so that is equivalent to, when you type it into the greenhouse gas savings, to about, 183,000 miles of driving.
So we're still emitting greenhouse gases, just not as much.
Correct. Just by
Okay.
using lights in general. Yeah.
All right. And then it probably would be good when we look at savings. Very often, we don't show net cost of installation and purchase.
Mhm.
But, like the solar field that we have, that, yeah, any rate, things would be better stated when we look at that, because kind of a more complete picture on what the real net cost or savings are.
Oh, well, there's the cost of parking lot lights. You mean you don't?
I meant like on the lights on solar fields, whenever we show this kind of stuff, usually the purchase price of whatever it is isn't included in that, which,
Well, this says cost of parking lot lights is 233.
yeah, not relative to that. I'm saying in general, when we look at like the solar field, which is millions and millions of dollars, that kind of thing, that we kind of say, well, we have it, so let's look at what it saves. But you got to spend money to save money.
By the way, because you're still a bit of a newbie, although, we keep forgetting you're the new guy. But the solar panels at the Judicial Center were done with a power purchase agreement, which means we paid nothing.
Yes.
Okay, okay. People kept saying, well, what's our return on investment? We said infinite because it cost us nothing or way less than zero. Yes.
This is Caius, Madam Chair. Thank
Mr.
you.
Caius.
I have a question. Just on the slide, since we came back to the slide, I had a little question. I was going to ask it afterwards, but I might as well ask it now. So the total cost was 2 million plus, and that's indoor and outdoor lighting. But all of this tabular stuff here is just the outdoor lighting. Is that correct?
Yeah,
The
that's
two-
correct. We don't have the values yet for the indoor lighting because it hasn't started yet. So
Okay,
once
so-
that project starts, I will have an updated version of this with all the indoor lights as well.
That would be a good title for the next slide. I think this slide should probably just say cost of parking lot lights. Otherwise,
It
it's a
does
little.
say it at the top, Chris, but it's below the total cost.
So
So
it
it's
says indoor
confusing.
and
I get
outdoor
it.
lighting. This is just outdoor, right?
Yeah,
I
I was
guess I'm
just
simple.
I was
fool,
just stating
so-
the total cost of everything. But yeah, so yes, this just the parking lot lights is the 233,000.
Okay.
And once the indoor lights start, then combined altogether will be the 2 million. And then I will have, I don't know how many indoor lights they are going to change. It will probably be numerous amounts.
We
and
look
then
forward
I
to
will
seeing
update
that.
on that.
Yeah.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask a real quick question, Mavis, if I may?
Of
So you say at the bottom, the estimated, the lights, well, whatever, the lights are 50% dimmed at nighttime. Wouldn't they be off? Why
have-
would they be dimmed? If nobody's
they-
there, they shut
Sorry,
off.
they,
right?
they would turn on at night, just have parking lot lights on.
Oh,
But
I meant
then-
the indoor lights. I thought.
Oh,
or
no,
this-
not the, sorry, it would, again, this is just, sorry to be confusing. This is, again, is just the outdoor lights.
Outdoor lights.
Got it. Okay, thank
More
you.
confusion with the time.
Yeah,
Cost of parking lot lights. It's,
Yep.
it's about the parking lot lights, right?
correct.
Okay, any more questions? Then let's move on to our resolution, please. I know we're running over time, but I don't know where Miss,
How much time do I
Then-
have to run through this?
Madam Chair, then
1
you
minute.
need a nominate area. This is Caius. I would move that we potentially approve a resolution approving a weatherization rebate program for the county cane farmers. Is
thank you,
that
Mr.
correct?
Caius.
And I would entertain a second.
Dennis's seconds.
Dennis the seconds, thank you. Ms. Hinshaw, do you want to explain this, please?
That is all Austin.
Austin, oh, Mr. Powell.
So again, how much time do I have to run through this?
Well, until-
30 seconds.
until Anita gets-
Much time as you need.
Yeah, Ms. Lewis is
I
not.
can give the very brief overview, but I can go into stories as well if you want it. But
Brief is good.
Go ahead and make a short story
Okay,
long.
Last questions if it doesn't.
The brief concept is this. Our folks first understand what the electric aggregation program is. Everyone understands what that is.
Electric irrigation.
Aggregation.
Oh, aggregation. Yes. Irrigation, I've
Okay.
never heard of.
So the point is that the electric suppliers give us civic contributions based on the contract. Our current contract from MC Squared gives the county $160,000 over these past 2 years. This current contract ends in 2025. We want to take a portion of this civic contribution, 20 grand, and split it into financial incentives, a rebate program, and offer it to farmers. And we want to focus these rebates on 2 weatherization efforts. First being air sealing, so the process of identifying any gaps where air is getting through and addressing it, and secondarily attic insulation to update it in your roof within your attic. The main reason why we want to prioritize these 2 efforts is that research has shown, I'll pull it up here, research has shown that if you just do these 2 efforts, they give you the most bang for your buck, around a 12 to 18% reduction in your overall home energy usage. Let me move on. So again, we're taking 20 grand from the 421 fund, and we want to split it into 2 specific rebates. The first being $500. So you have to be a Kane County farmer and you have to use NICOR for your residential heating. And then the second rebate would be $800 for folks farmers that do live in Kane County but do not use NICOR for residential heating. This is to make up for some folks, for instance, who use propane for the residential heating instead of natural gas. This leads into the next portion here where NICOR offers rebates for both of these weatherization efforts. So if you say, for instance, have someone in Kane County who gets the $500 and they do both air sealing and attic insulation, then in theory, they can get an additional $650 from NICOR in rebates. So the $800 for the folks is to kind of to mitigate some of the less money they would get from not being using NICOR. And then the additional aspect to this as well is the Inflation Reduction Act. The 25C tax credit offers 30% off of qualified expenses or up to $1,200. So if you spent for the materials that you would use to put in attic insulation or the caulk to seal the windows, you would take a 30% off of that total cost. So when you pair all those together, you can get a decent amount of savings. For context here, the Minnesota Center for Energy and Environment estimates that air sealing and attic insulation costs between $2 grand to $6,500. I went through all of NICOR's qualified contractors list. If you want to get a rebate through NICOR, you have to go through this list of 10 to 15, 10 to 15 contractors, depending on what zip code you live in. And you just choose one of them, you work through them to get this weatherization, and then you give NICOR your bill with the number, what type of work you did. And because that contractor is already qualified, you qualify for the rebate. I called about 8 of the 15 or so, and I got 3 answers from them where in the Chicagoland area, it kind of varies between $3,400 to upwards of $7 grand. So that's the total cost for both of these weatherization efforts. Now I can get into some of the breakdown of the savings, what would change. So from this perspective, you have folks who are a farmer but don't use NICOR, so they get the $800. If you get the $800, and depending on the cost between $3 grand to $7 grand, you can get anywhere between 11% savings up to over 25% of the total cost is saved. If you move on to a Kane County resident who uses NICOR, so again, they get the $500 from us, and then in this example, $650 from NICOR, you would get $1,150 in a rebate from us and NICOR, and that can lead to somewhere between 16% in savings or up to 38% in savings. Moving on to the next one, this is if a farmer in Kane County gets the $800 rebate from us and also goes through the IRA to get the 30% tax credit. The rebate amount could be somewhere between $1,400 to $1,700, depending on the total cost of this weatherization effort. And that change can lead somewhere between less than 25% or up or nearly 50% in total cost savings. Yes.
Got a question about that. The Inflation Reduction Act, that's like a write-off on their taxes, correct, at the end of the year? Is that how that works?
Yeah, you would get it. It would get a tax credit. You'd fill out a form for it. And also a main piece of context here is based upon the current reconciliation bill that's going through Congress, this tax credit would sunset at the end of the year. So if this program is approved through y'all and approved through the board, then it would be a focus of mine for farmers to take advantage of this tax credit now because it will sunset at the end of the year if that's how
Exactly
Congress passes the bill.
Because this is the fiscal year right now. If they take
Yes.
care of this problem, we know pretty much 99% possibility they're going to be able to write off that on their taxes
Yes.
next year.
It would be unprecedented if they did not make that such this year. And then the final cost breakdown here is if you pair them all together. So you have the $500 you get from the county, the $650 you get from NICOR, and then the up to $1,200 you get from the IRA. So you can have a rebate all told together between $2,000 to $2,350, and that could lead to a 33% savings or upwards of 68% if your total cost is a lot less than or is near the $3,000 mark. So that's the basic structure of this. These are the general takeaways. Feel free to ask any questions.
Mr. Ross?
Have you worked with the Agriculture Department or the Farm Bureau regarding
Of
this?
course, we brought it up to the Ag Committee last month.
Okay.
On April 23rd, I met with Steve Arnold through the Ag.
Okay.
Ag-
All right. As long as we're working with them, I just wanted to double check. Thanks.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So $20,000 to be used for this? I think it might be better to take the 20,000 and use it for communication, postage, and because it's going to go to at most probably 26 farmers that would benefit from this. So that's good. But I figure if we spent the money for postage and communication and things like to all the farmers in Kane County with the things you just talked about, like the Inflation Reduction Act and tax credits and ways to apply to NICOR for the discounts, we'd impact more people than we will be able to with just using the cash to pay people that apply. I think they're both great ideas, but if I'm looking at all the farmers we could possibly touch, I think using this 20,000, great idea. Communication and postage to let everybody know, emails, whatever Kane County connects, that would be a much bigger impact.
The fund currently is nearly over $500,000, so we could pull more from the fund and come back to this if you'd like us to do that. Originally, as Bill might remember, we offered between $200 to $400. And from talking with Steve, since there's about 500 farms in King County, we thought it would be better to offer a higher rebate amount and less people would benefit because we don't know at this point how many people actually will be interested. So this is kind of a test case to lead to future rebates or future grant programs for other things beyond weatherization.
I think maybe both, Madam Chair, would be a great idea.
I'll talk to you,
Yeah.
Mr. Politician, about this. Miss Ellen?
Alan, just to address Mr. Gripe's concern, I think it's fair to say that the farm community does pay attention to this kind of thing, and there's a lot of communication already going out. So, if we can get people interested with a higher amount,
Mike.
oh, I'm sorry, if we can get people interested because we're offering a higher rebate, I think that there's a lot of communication that's already in place, and we can always.
And if I could
Sorry.
add to that point as well, I have talked to Steve. We already have in mind, if this all passes, to put out a story through the King County Farmer. I believe also Facebook was a good idea as well. I'm going to full on write stories, put it in all of our social media networks and blast it out. And if I have to go to like gas stations and put up flyers, I'll happily do that. It's staff time at the
I
end of
think
the
it's
day.
time to call the question, but.
One last question is, are we going to put a deadline on this? Like say apply by whatever so that they could take advantage of the rebate that we're offering?
In my mind, I see it as when the fund dries up, when the fund ends is when the program would end. Of course, it depends on, say, if we get 25 to 40 farmers jumping on it this year, then we might come back to y'all and want to re-up for another 20 grand. But in the case of, say, getting folks on with the IRA tax credit, I can push that as quick as possible if you'd like me
Right.
to.
Yeah, I think so.
That's why I wanted to bring it up as
That's
context.
the whole point, making sure to
Mhm.
take advantage of it this year.
Yeah, it doesn't fit, of course, with the growing season stuff going on right now. Have to wait till winter to probably have it better, get in touch with them better, but I got to do it now either way if this all passes.
Mr. Caius.
I guess that was just the point, was there's a deadline already built into this thing, and we need to have it moving along very quickly in order to
Mhm.
capture the maximum, even though it's only 25 to 50 farmers or whatever, to make sure that they get involved right away.
Yes. My hope is to have like a guide put together and everything as well, and get in touch with folks of like how to properly fill out the tax form, because I'm no tax professional, but I want to make it as smooth and as simple as possible for them to know that they can get this money.
Okay, no more questions? I hope we have to move on. We have to do this. Please, so we're ready to vote on this very interesting resolution. Please take the roll.
Allen,
On aye.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Penisys,
Dennis is yes.
Young, Tarver, Roth, Bates.
Bates, yes, and
Passes.
Mr. Gripe will look into, but are you kind of satisfied with all the other publicity that's happening?
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like great, but yeah, the more people we can help, the better.
okay, great, thank you. All right. Any new business?
Just really
Mr.
quickly, I think we had a tour from, after the administration committee of our, over this way on our rejuvenation of the
Union.
Geneva Creek. It's open now, so please encourage everyone to go over
Mhm,
and have a look, see what
It's
we've done
beautiful.
to help save that area for nature.
mhm. Wear dirty shoes.
Well, there's a
It was
gravel
actually,
path,
it
right?
was-
Got a
it was-
gravel path.
It's a
out.
pretty good gravel path, at least, of course, it wasn't raining, but.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I don't have prepared comments, but as always, thank you to our staff and all the hard work you're doing. And thank you for looking up ways that we could save hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars for the county through sustainability, which also saves the planet. So thank you very much. Okay.
Madam Chair, I would ask for unanimous consent to place the reports on file.
Any objection, Mr. Gripe?
No objection, but I also wanted to, as part of the outdoor thing, this garden that's out here is growing about a 4-foot poison ivy. So I brought gloves with me today. I'll be removing the poison ivy bush and the 2 mulberry trees that have sprouted up, which are invasive.
Can we watch?
The right here?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for your service, sir.
Can we watch?
Yes, you can watch.
And he wants to know where to put them.
Not in my yard.
Chris's
Did you bring plastic bags?
Can we
to-
criticize while watching?
Yes.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Dennis moves.
Ralph second.
Last seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for a great meeting, everybody. Good.